And showtime, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us on the latest episode of the ChannelPro 5-Minute Roundup. A look at news, trends, and tips for the SMB channel in 5 minutes or thereabouts. My name is Rich Freeman. I'm the executive editor of the ChannelPro Network and your co-host for this program. With me, as always, is the other host, Eric Simpson, who is CIO and Senior Vice President at SPC International, a business improvement and training organization for managed service providers and other IT providers. Eric, how goes it today?
It's cooler today than it was last time we had our 5-minute roundup. How about you, Rich?
It's actually warmer today than last time we did the Actually, last time we did the show, I was in Washington, D.C. in a very nicely air-conditioned hotel. I am back home in Seattle right now where nobody has air conditioning, and it's about 90 degrees outside and sweltering in here right now.
Oh, wow. Well, there's no climate change. Look over here.
Yeah, that's right. Well, let's dive into the news of the week here. And oddly enough, this is actually kind of news of last week. We just got around to it because I was traveling and out of town on vacation for a little while there. We finally got around to it at ChannelPro. This concerns WatchGuard. And an announcement they made late last week that they are adding technology from Cylance, a security vendor you may have heard of, to their the operating system that powers their firewall products. And so Cylance does next generation behavior-based, real-time, zero-day kinds of detection capabilities. And WatchGuard is now going to be building that into the OS that powers their firewalls and equipping their firewalls to identify and block 0 days before they have a chance rather to do some harm. And so for me, aside from just the intrinsic interest of the alliance and the addition of artificial intelligence-based technology to WatchGuard firewalls, this is just sort of an interesting illustration of where we're seeing the whole security hardware space go right now. SonicWall, for example, has a partnership in place with SentinelOne. Zyxel has a partnership in place with Bitdefender. A lot of the makers of firewall technology understand now that the technology they've been relying on in the past to screen out malware really can't keep up with the threat landscape today, which is just gotten out of control, basically, in terms of the proliferation and the number of exploits out there. And so you're seeing a lot of these companies, including WatchGuard, forge these kinds of alliances with third parties that have technology capable of spotting these threats before they've made it to anyone's blacklist or established a signature for themselves. These technologies can do that kind of work in real time. And, anyone out there in the firewall space who doesn't have this kind of partnership already, I think is going to have one real soon.
I agree, Rich. And it's just the reality that these security companies that have built their brand and their expertise around kind of hardware appliances and things like that have invested, all of the R&D into those products, yet it would take them so much more investment and time to build the type of capability that the software-based anti-malware, anti-threat companies like Cylance and the rest that you mentioned have built already. So it makes it a much easier discussion to say, hey, let's partner together, let's work out our relationship here so that we can both grow together. So I think you're right. I think that we'll see more and more of this type of partnership come along, and you're right. We cannot respond quickly enough as these threats are evolving all the time. And how much easier is it to monitor in real time and then just push an update right to an appliance that's already built to adapt to those changing threat landscapes all the time. So this is the future now, right? Everything is going to be software based, software controlled, software monitored. There may be hardware involved, but the ability for these devices with their built-in, I don't know if it's going to be, more of an AI type thing, more of a Skynet thing over time, but really we need the ability to manage these devices and make those adjustments autonomously through the experts that are managing those security solutions for us, right? I mean, back in the day, I remember when we would have to go patch and update hardware firewalls, right? Now we can deploy these things and rely on the partnerships that our vendors have built to do that for us and protect our customers. So it's a great thing.
Yeah, and it's another illustration of this interesting trend in the security hardware world, where these security hardware companies are becoming software companies too. And SonicWall is a great example of that. They've got all sorts of different cloud-based software security technologies now. And even though you think of them really as being all about firewalls, all about hardware, and same kind of deal with WatchGuard. I believe we spoke on this program just a few weeks ago about their multi-factor authentication technology. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not enough to be a security hardware vendor anymore to keep end users safe. You really do need a combination of software and hardware. Well, let's jump into your business tip of the week, Eric. What do you have for us?
Well, today's business. Now, listen, I've got my intelligent Alexa device talking to me right now, letting me know what I'm supposed to be doing, I guess. So I need to be monitored just like these hardware appliances. Alexa, stop. Gotta love that, right? So tip of the week this week is all about onboarding your clients properly in order to maximize your efficiencies, profitability, and customer satisfaction. So let's break down the old way versus, what I'm going to propose. The old way of onboarding clients, and as you know, Rich, and a lot of our viewers, we work with hundreds, if not thousands, of IT providers and MSPs over, the lifetime of our relationship in the IT industry. And typically what we find is onboarding is a term at worst and a broken process at best for many of the partners that we work with, i.e., we work with folks that say to us, well, we really don't have all of our clients' environments documented, and it takes us forever to provide service and support. And, we're going to get our ROI from, our new managed services contract, maybe over 3 or 4 months. All of these things, to me, are easily avoided by having a process whereby we establish phasing through onboarding, and we educate our new client about the onboarding process and not make it an event. And I even go as far as to encourage our partners not to charge a separate onboarding fee for clients, but to include that cost over the lifetime of that agreement. That way you're avoiding a sales objection right up front. And that gives you the ability to control how you onboard your client and what you do when. So if I'm a strategic IT provider, I'm going to look at where are the most costs in my onboarding process, and I'm going to try to without impacting my ability to service my client, but I'm going to judiciously identify when I'm going to deploy my most costly type of onboarding activities. That may be in the second month, that may be in the third month, depending upon what I've got to deal with. But I'm looking at maximizing my margin, but also letting the client know that we're going to provide best effort response time through the onboarding process. So again, we're not making the client wait to open tickets. Now, this can be tricky, right? You've got to have some basic core things done first, obviously deploying your agent, setting up the client in your trouble ticketing system, teaching them how to open tickets and things like that. But if you've got an infrastructure that needs to be touched and upgraded over a period of time, you don't have to do all of that the first month and go into the red to do that. So look at how you're onboarding your clients and make sure that you have a dedicated process where you are documenting the entire environment. And maybe with this thought process, it will allow partners to actually do the documentation, knowing that they don't have to get it all done in the first 30 days. Phase it out over time, make sure it gets done properly, and just know that your margins will increase month over month over month as you get through that process, and you'll be delivering better service to your clients along the way. And ultimately, all of your clients will be much more satisfied because you've shared the phasing of the process with them and taken away the barrier to onboarding by not charging them a big, chunk up front and letting them know that you're going to participate in this onboarding process with them. So having that strategy in place really helps you maximize your margins over time. Not wait for an ROI point in the future. Try to be profitable from the very first month. And if you do it right, all of these things can be achieved. And if you're communicating with your client properly, you can also increase their satisfaction and increase the long-term value of those relationships.
Yeah, it's a really great tip. You know, it's so common to talk to MSPs who will tell you that they just go into a new client relationship expecting to take a bath financially in the first month, certainly, of that relationship, because they know there's going to be a lot of work they're going to have to do to get everything in shape at that client environment. And yeah, you know, as you're saying, basically, if you're clever about the way you do it and careful about the way you do it, you can actually spread that out a little bit, minimize the impact, maybe even be profitable, like you said, from month one. And I like the bit, you know, essentially about letting the client know we're doing this on a phased basis, but we're also not charging you for it. So there's some give and take here that's going to work for all of us.
Sure. And, when we had our MSP practice before we sold it, one of the first pure play MSPs in the industry at the time, we were profitable from the moment that agreement was signed because we knew how to price and deliver our services in this manner and do the onboarding this way. And in addition to, maybe having the ability to negotiate a little bit. So think about it this way. You can also do the approach that says, look, with a longer term agreement, the less we'll charge you up front, right? So if you're uncomfortable with that and still need to develop your strategy and are trying to still figure out, what your true cost of service delivery is, which we talked about in another 5-minute roundup earlier this year, go into it knowing, doing just like the vendors that service your clients do anyway. Say, listen, if you want a 1-year agreement, then you're going to pay for everything, right? You're going to pay for the hardware, you're going to pay for the first month of service, and we'll bring it in. If you pay for, if you sign a 2-year agreement, maybe you'll just pay for the hardware and we'll do the labor. But if you do a 3-year agreement, then it's all inclusive. I'm not giving you that as a strategy to go do exactly that, but think about it that way. If that gives you some peace of mind and gives you a little bit of, helps you kind of mitigate the risk in your mind, then you can also use that tactic. Say, Mr. and Ms. Client, if you only want to sign a 1-year agreement, then we're going to charge you X for onboarding, but I would still onboard them the same way, Rich. We still want to make sure that we maximize our margins as much as possible every single month.
Well, fantastic. Great stuff. Love that tip. That leaves us with time for just one more story, which comes to us from, and I'm probably mispronouncing it, Cologne, Michigan, a town of 1,200 people and a reasonably good-sized Amish community, but no access to Uber until now. A gentleman, a resident of Colin named Timothy Hochstedler, has set up his own version of Uber in a horse and buggy, basically, that he's calling Amish Uber. Now, there's no app, no ratings system. Any payment is done in cash at the end of the ride. If you want to ride, you have to hail this horse and buggy arrangement, basically. So it sounds a whole lot more like a taxi than Uber to me, but what the heck? We'll call it Amish Uber. We'll go along with him. And, watch out, Uber, because maybe your business model is being disrupted by the Amish now.
Yeah, and the way you can tell Timothy is getting closer to you is by the sound of the clip clops getting louder, right? So there's that.
That's right. Who needs the little icon on your app, basically? Just listen for the horse.
That's right.
Well, that is all the time we have this week on the 5-minute roundup. Thank you very much for joining us. If you like the show, you'd like to take a look at old episodes, keep up on upcoming ones, I encourage you to subscribe to the ChannelPro Network channel on YouTube. If you're interested in the kinds of content we've been talking about here in terms of best practices for running your business, technology news from the industry, you want to visit channelpronetwork.com on a regular basis. We've got new stuff going up there every day. To learn more about SPC International and the work that Eric does with his clients, go to consulting.spc-intl.com. That's consulting.spc-intl.com. We will be back in a week with another episode of the 5-minute roundup. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week. Eric and I are enjoying the rest of your week already.